Welcome everybody to another episode of the PFF College Football Podcast. I'm your host Seth Galena, and today we had on a big time show. We talked to our weekly guest Austin Gayle, talking about some NFL prospects. We talked to PFF Tony Anthony Treash about the games coming up this weekend, and we recapped a little bit of Louisville, Miami. And I got to talk to one of the rising stars in the coaching world, Hawaii wide receiver coach Brennan Marion of the very funky GoGo offense. So Brennan was the offensive coordinator for Howard University and then William & Mary, and he brought in kind of a very, not just kind of, like a very funky offense in terms of formations and personnel to those two teams. And everywhere he went, as I detail in my interview with him, everywhere he went, he improved their offense tremendously each year. So clearly, even with personnel that maybe he's not used to, he's been able to transform the team into great things. And now he's at the University of Hawaii under Todd Graham. And we just got to hope that Hawaii plays this year, because it would be really great to watch them play. They were Hawaii is the run and shoot team, and they're not going to be run and shoot anymore. I think they're going to use some of that GoGo stuff that you'll hear Brennan talk about, and they're going to bring in some Gus Malzahn stuff, because I think they're all the coaching staff is kind of influenced there. The offensive coordinator G.J. Kinney comes from the NFL ranks recently as a QC with the Philadelphia Eagles. So a lot of different influences. May have been not run and shoot, but they're still expecting to be super explosive on offense. So we hope we get to see Hawaii play this year. If not, go find like old William & Mary tape and go watch this wild offense. It's different. I can tell you that it's absolutely different. So I had a great conversation with Brennan Marion about that stuff. But before we get into that, let me go run down the quarterbacks real quick from this past week. Starting with, of course, Trevor Lawrence. He was amazing again. Basically, he was 9 for 9 because his one incompletion was a very wide open drop by Amari Rodgers. Of course, Amari Rodgers made up with that with just absolutely burning a safety on a post route. And that's kind of what, this is what you expected them to do against the Citadel. They just were better. What else are you going to say? They were just better. But at least we saw... And fans of the podcast will know me talking poop about Clemson's offense, but they threw an intermediate in-breaking route, and it was a beautiful throw by Trevor Lawrence. Look, they don't do this stuff a lot, and that's my thing. Well, I'd like to see them do it, because he's going to have to do it in the NFL. But the few times that they do it, he makes it look pretty good, because he's one of the best we've ever seen. Talking Louisville, Miami was the big game from the weekend. So the two quarterbacks there, Derek King continues to get more acclimated in that offense. Big things are coming from him. He didn't even have to use his legs that much. We saw against UAB such explosive plays on the ground. This week, 88.0 passing grade, so just lit it up through the air, and hopefully he continues to do that. Mikael Cunningham, the other side, we wanted to see more development from him going into this year, and we talk about it a little bit with me and Tony. It's just not there yet. 62 grade. Just want to see more. You want to see more consistency, more accuracy. I think those are the biggest things. Dylan Gabriel against Georgia Tech. He's the UCF quarterback, 90.2 grade, 7 big-time throws. And the UCF offense under Josh Heupel is one of my favorite offenses to watch, because it's kind of boiled football down to a very binary decision-making process. They're going to say, if you play with two high safeties, no problem, we're going to run the ball, and we have pretty good schemes and we can get yards. The second you spit down to one safety, we're going to throw a vertical route down the sideline, and we're going to do it all the time. And if we hit half of them, which they basically did this weekend when they threw 11 and had 5 completions, that's enough. That's enough yards to last us the whole day. We're fine. Completing 5 go routes in one game is a lot, and this is what they do week in, week out. So just a super fun offense to watch, super vertical, super explosive, and Dylan Grable's a good quarterback for that offense. On the other side of things, all right, Georgia Tech, it's still a lot of growing pains. They got that big upset against Florida State. Couldn't get it done against a pretty good UCF team. But, man, I really like what I see out of Jess Sims. So the grades aren't there yet, and me and Tony talk about that later too. But when I break down the tape, I see a guy who's doing a lot of good things in terms of the process. The outcomes aren't there yet, and a lot of that has to do with him being a freshman, him playing his second ever game. Georgia Tech still in that transition away from the flex bone into a spread offense. If they can recruit and surround Jeff with some good players, I honestly think this could be a really good and maybe even a future NFL quarterback. I said kind of jokingly, and we put it out on Twitter, that he might be a future Heisman winner. Look, I'm just trying to get the juices flowing when I say stuff like that. He might be, but at the end of the day, he looks good enough that I think with a little bit more development, he gets it. He understands the quarterback position. With a little more development, I think he could be a very, very good player for Georgia Tech. So anyways, without further ado, here's Hawaii wide receiver coach Brennan Marion. All right, I'm now joined by Brennan Marion, the Hawaii wide receivers coach. Brennan was recently the offensive coordinator at William & Mary, and before that, the offensive coordinator at Howard. He's now at Hawaii. Welcome to the pod, Brennan.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So I was looking at your college stats. You played at Tulsa. Explain to the listeners what it's like to run a 4.28, because I don't think most of us don't know what that feels like.
I guess I was running with a purpose. I was running with passion and purpose. That's what I tell people. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't a track guy. I didn't have like a track background or anything like that. It was more just running with a passion and purpose, was dedicated.
So what happens to me a lot, and this is really stupid, but what happens to me a lot is like when I play quarterback in my flag football league, I think I'm running for I'll scramble and think I'm running for 5, 10, 15 yards. And then I get tackled and I look back and I gained like 2 yards. So I'm assuming that never really happened to you, because you had 31 yards per catch. I believe your sophomore year at Tulsa.
Yes, I did.
What was your go-to route or concept, whatever?
Well, the goal was really, my favorite receiver was Randy Moss, and I basically told my coach I didn't want to run any short routes, so bubbles and hitches and stuff. So pretty much anything that was a go, a post, a corner route, a dig, a comeback, those are the only routes that I wanted to run. And Coach Malzahn kind of gave me the ability to do that. He always put me in a position to always run a deep route, and that's kind of how it, at first it started off as, I was a clear out guy for guys. I would always clear out for my teammates. And I always tell people to embrace their role, because while the other guys on the team were getting a whole bunch of catches, everybody, I think the majority of the receivers had more catches than me. But because I was a down the field threat, I had less catches but more yards and was able to set the record. So, never minimize your role. As a deep threat, you have to be a clear out guy as well. So, I did a lot of takeoffs and running down the field.
It's funny you mentioned being a clear out guy, and that's let's say that's typically the Z receiver of a team. Just to keep it simple, that's the Z receiver. But what's crazy is you look at a lot of these offenses, like LSU last year, you look at the Rams, what they've been doing for a few years. All of a sudden, that Z receiver is moving closer and closer and closer to the quarterback. He's not just field receiver running those clear out routes. He's now a player in the offense now. And it's crazy how that's kind of evolved. Just kind of when you mentioned that, I was thinking about those clear out routes.
The Z receiver has really transitioned from, and even when I was coordinating at Howard a few years ago, like we used the kid. He had like 40 catches for 1,000 yards, All-American for us, and we used him to the field all the time. The field corner is typically the weaker of the two corners. You put your best corner in the boundary in your field, So if you put a better receiver to the field, you have more opportunities to get him the ball and make plays down the field. So that's really the thought process behind it.
I think you also just get off coverage probably more often to the field. So you don't need to have a guy who's going to have like a toolbox of releases, for example. I mean, he's got off coverage. He can go, he can use his speed, and he can hopefully get behind the defense, like you said.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and then you get a guy who can, move around a little bit, and you can, bunch him up, tight splits, as you see the Rams do a lot. You can do a lot with that guy to the field, and manipulate the splits and spacings of the field.
So you finish your career at Tulsa. We have a very slight connection because I'm here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and you were with the Alouettes for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when Coach Tressman was there, I actually went up there. I tore my ACL like the second day I was up there. But it was, a good experience. I mean, other than, obviously I got hurt. But Coach Tressman was a great coach. You could tell that he had, some serious football savvy to him.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly worked out for him. And if you want to talk about clear out routes with a Z receiver, you come to Canada, and that's the clear out man, like playing very far away from the quarterback on the big Canadian field.
No doubt.
So after that, you get into coaching. You're coaching high school. You end up at Howard University as the offensive coordinator. And then, you had been tinkering with it for some time in high school. And then this GoGo offense kind of comes about where, it's a triple option style offense, but you're putting two tailbacks basically like they're holding hands next to each other in a lot of these formations. What is it about that formation and putting those two tails, I believe they're two tailbacks rather than a fullback and a tailback usually, next to each other, that's giving defenses so much fits?
Well, if you look at the true West Coast passing game, it was all predicated off of two backs, 21 personnel, 20 personnel sets. So the key for me was in 11 personnel, you can't really give the tight end the ball. Tight end's not really a ball carrier. And in high school, you have more running backs than you do tight ends and receivers. Typically, most people play running back in Little League if they're a good player. And I wanted to be able to give the best two players the ball and not lose any threat of them in the passing game. So when I started playing with it, you run the triple option because you have an undersized line.
Of course. And,
when I got to college, taking over the worst ranked offenses in college and FCS, the teams that I took over, typically the line, you're not very strong on the front lines of it. So, I wanted to make sure we had a chance to still be successful running the ball, and it gives the quarterback a chance to bail you out. The quarterback becomes a point guard and can bail you out like he does in the triple option. So a lot of it was predicated on the West Coast passing game, and a lot of it was predicated on, I don't want to just say, parents don't care in high school that little Johnny's not very good. They still want to see him win and be successful. And, as a coach, you still want to win. You can't just say, oh, my players are bad. You still have to try to find a way to make the kids successful.
So, the Malzahn offense that you played in at Tulsa, I don't know if anyone would call it like a true like triple option. Obviously, there's a lot of option concepts, but I know a lot of people calling it like kind of like a hybrid single wing T type of situation. So where did that, like you going almost full triple option, come into your offense? Like where did you get those ideas from?
Well, so basically when I was my first year coaching, I was coaching at James Logan High School in the Bay Area, and we played De La Salle. And they were running split back veer and just beating everybody. I mean, Coach Ladd's just beating everybody. And it's just like, I hated their passing game. I was like, I can't do that because, my receiver at heart, I just can't, go full wholesale into it. So that's when I really started studying like the split back veer and triple option and all that stuff. And I was like, there's a way that you can marry all these worlds together. So I like the West Coast passing game because in junior college, I played for a guy who coached at Stanford with Bill Walsh, and he knew the West Coast offense. And then when I got to Tulsa, I loved all the up-tempo and trick plays and shots that Coach Malzahn had. And then I loved the triple option because it always gave you a chance to win, regardless of how good your players were. It gives you a chance to win. So I wanted to marry all three of those together. And once I was able to communicate them to the kids and put them all together, put pass concepts, run concepts, then that's kind of how it all came together in 2013 when I was a high school head coach.
So I just have some numbers here that I got from ESPN's Bill Connolly about your offenses. So 2017 Howard, you went from, well, in 2016, they were 111th in the country in S&P offense. You brought them up to 65th. A year later, you brought them up to 45th. And then 2019 at William & Mary, they improved from 100th to 84th. So everywhere you've been, there's been an improvement. And honestly, I kind of agree with you that triple option gives you a chance to win. Maybe when you're playing against teams that aren't, or you're the team that doesn't have the athletes, let's say, that the other team has. And that kind of leads me into the next question. You guys went into UNLV. You guys were like 125-point underdogs, give or take a couple points there. And you guys won. And one of the things, so I was reading Stephen Ruiz, who's a good friend of mine, his article on you and the GoGo offense. And one of the things that you mentioned in the article was how UNLV played a lot of too high against you guys that game. And they never got out of it. And you just said, okay, well, that's fine. Like, we're just going to run the football. Like, is that – I know the too high, one high dynamic is something that a lot of coaches talk about, but is that something – that you kind of hold on to a little more?
No, I just believed in that game that they never really caught up to three elements in the backfield that could run the football, and that was really the first time that, like people talk about our formation in the GoGo offense, like, oh, I ran that back in, but you ran one play out of it. No one has seen like an entire offense out of that formation, so, and multiple sets with the receivers and tight ends and different things that we do. And it's really a lot of the same as and a different look, different pictures and presentations, but the same play. And really, they just never adapted to it. I mean, we ran one of the same plays over and over and over again the entire game, and they just never adapted to it, even though we were just changing the picture of it and running the same play. So the one high, two high thing is very important when it comes to running and passing the football. But at the same time, it's like, if they're not going to adapt to you doing a particular scheme and play, and not knowing that all three of these guys are going to touch the ball, like none of them is a dummy back here, whereas I always talk about the 11 versus 20 personnel world. I mean, one of those guys is just a dummy that takes you to the play. He's just blocking, so that's the difference. And I think you see guys that have had a lot of success, like Lincoln Riley, when he went to Oklahoma and he changed from being an air raid guy to going 20 personnel and using P. Ryan and Joe Mixon in the backfield, then he takes off as, one of the best offensive minds in football. So it's kind of, if you had two great running backs, it's like, if I always thought about the Raiders when they had Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson, and they put them both in the backfield at the same time. I mean, you're going to keep Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson, like, play one at a time. You would play both of those dudes at the same time.
Well, it's funny because, when we talk about having two guys like that in the backfield, like I said earlier, like two tailbacks, let's say, in the backfield, we usually think of them in a split back formation. So one on either side of the quarterback. But like I said, what you did is you put them on the same side of the quarterback. Do you find defenses are kind of maybe not accounting for the fact that you have two on the same side? You're in like a kind of pseudo, like you would maybe call it a king or queen set or something like that. Like, are the fronts not adjusting, or are you just like, hey, we got too much speed here, and you're not accounting for that?
Yeah, I mean, it really, you have to pick your poison. It's like, I'm gonna try to stop one side from them running to the backside, or I'm gonna try to stop them running to the front side, or you just get a team who's just plays base the whole game and hopes that their players are better, or you get a team who tries to all-out blitz you all game. I mean, there's really not, when you click on the tape and you go through all your traditional formations, I tell guys that, like, defensive coordinators are going to start to have the upper hand here in a little bit if people don't start creating things, because now, I mean, for 15 years, it's been the same exact plays, same exact formations, and defensive coordinators should start to, they should start to have the upper hand on offensive coordinators.
it feels like DCs can now stop 2x2 with a bubble and an inside zone. Like feels like that we've gotten past that. So I agree. Now you need something. You can't just line up in spread like 2x2, 3x1 the whole game. We're seeing a lot more. I mean, this is maybe the past 5, 6, 7 years is more of that kind of tight end H-back type of sniffer, they call it. But then what you've did is even brought the sniffer back even further right into the backfield and done stuff like that. So I don't think it's cool. Also, another question about the offense is you guys are mostly I think a zone team, inside outside zone. Why that? Why not more of a counter team? Why not more of a power team? Like what is the thought philosophy on that?
Well, really it's predicated on what the offensive line can do. I mean, so at like at Howard, for example, the first year we were top 25 in the country in rushing in FCS, and we were a wide zone team. We were like an Alex Gibb wide zone, but we did it from the backs being to the side, right? And then the next year at Howard, we rushed for close to 200 yards a game, and we were a power team, straight up A-gap power. At William and Mary, we ran a lot of duo and counter, and wide zone. So it really just predicated on what our offensive line can dominate and where, like I think wide zone and all the triple option stuff we do it off of it, double option, different things that we do off of it gives you an opportunity to make the defense run, get them tired, and creates those creases for the back. So, it doesn't matter what size your linemen are. If they can tire the defensive linemen out and their hands are on their hips, then they have an opportunity to beat them later in the game, when we, with our tempo, creating that fifth quarter and getting extra snaps.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but there's something about the wide zone, and it's worked for, when you talk about Alex Gibbs, let's say him and his buddies in Denver in like the late 90s, let's say they invented it, let's say. Obviously nothing's invented, but let's say that. And then they were one of the few teams who ran it, and then Kubiak goes to Houston and he runs it a bit. But now it's almost like back in vogue again. Obviously the Rams doing stuff like that, and McVay on the Shanahan tree. You have Mike Shanahan in with the 49ers and stuff like that. And then you even have some of the FBS teams like Appalachian State, and now those guys going out to Louisville and Missouri. What is it about the wide zone that's so good? Like I love it. I just love it as a base play because you can do so much stuff off of it.
It's kind of like how people like the air raid passing game, the line route, the over route, Y over or whatever. It's kind of like a call all. It doesn't matter what front it is. If their players are better, you still have an opportunity to get yards because you make those guys cover 12 yards. You move them off their spot, and there's places for the back to insert, multiple places where the back can insert. And it's a one-cut run. It's a simple, easy read for the back. And the line just has to kind of run off the ball and be violent off the ball. And, even sometimes the line can get pushed back. Like a D lineman can drive an O lineman back, and that still creates a gap or a crease for a running back to, because he leaves the rest of the D line out to dry or the defense out to dry. So it's really just a call all, and it's a safe play, and you really get into, especially if you have other elements on it, you put different, bubbles on it and pitch plays and, RPOs and things like that. You have the extra elements to it. So it really gives you an opportunity to create some creases and big plays.
Yeah, I mean, you see what the Rams do with all their pre and post snap gadgetry.
And I love it. I love it. People tell me like that's the number one play I put in first, because if you put that play in first, then you have 50 different plays that come off of that you can stack off of that. There's so many, waggle and boots and nakeds and reverses, and there's so many things you can do off of it.
I also find it supports it creates like a floor for your quarterback, so you don't need to have Tom Brady back there. You can have a guy like I'm not trying to downplay him, but a guy like Jared Goff, who's obviously very talented, but has all the support around him. Like you said, the nakeds, the boots, the fake corners into the post that they can hit for big plays. So I'm a big fan of the wide zone. I think if I ever start coaching again, I think I go watch those old Alex Gibbs videos, and I think that's play install number one.
No doubt. No doubt.
So you are, let's skip forward a bit. You are now the wide receiver coach at the University of Hawaii. Were you coaching, when you were an OC, were you working with a position, or you were kind of just looking at the whole group?
No, I've always coached the quarterbacks. I mean, this is kind of my first time coaching receivers. I coached running backs and quarterbacks. So when I GA'd, I worked with the running backs, and when I was at a Division II school, I worked with the running backs. And then both years at Howard, I worked with Kayla Newton as the quarterback, and then William Marion as the quarterback coach. And in high school, I coached the quarterback. So the 10 years I've been coaching, 7 of those have been with the quarterback. So this is kind of the first time being, receiver coach. It was weird, like receiver, being a guy who got paid professionally to be a receiver, receiver coach interviews, guys be looking at me like, I don't know. I'm like, receiver, that's easy. I mean, I've been doing that my whole life, like that's like the back of your hand, you know what I'm saying? That's easy.
Well, the thing that I'm very curious about is, so Hawaii is the run and shoot. Hawaii is the run and shoot. Like basically my whole life, Hawaii has been the run and shoot. And the thing with the run and shoot offense, especially with the receivers, I mean, it's a lot of go find wherever there's a hole, and we'll find you eventually. Especially on the backside of the play. Maybe the front side's locked and the backside has a vertical get open route. Whatever it is. So I don't know if you've taught offenses like that, but do you think the transition is going to be from you going from the receivers you have, maybe going from that type of fluidity to, I don't know if you guys are running more of a rigid structure offensively. Is that going to be hard for them to get it, hard for you to teach it? Like, what's going on with that?
No, I think the biggest thing is, there's always site adjustment and route adjustments on plays, and obviously having a lot of background in that, it's easy to transition and teach guys that, because we've done it. Obviously the run and shoot, is next level for the slots as far as, it's like the turkey bowl. I mean, them dudes can do anything, when they find green grass, so it hasn't been a difficult transition. It's the same as, just different route adjustments, just getting used to teaching those guys those route adjustments. I mean, after you coach the quarterback, to me, I mean, you can coach any position after you coach the quarterback.
I hope as a former quarterback coach, I definitely agree with you on that one. we can just coach everything really at this point. O-line, D-line, like we've seen everything. So we're multi-faceted. So, but what is you don't have to, you can be very vague in your answer here, but what is going to the offense kind of going to look like whenever you guys do get on the field? Is it going to look like what I'm used to seeing Hawaii, or is it going to look like more of the Malzahn stuff that we talked about earlier?
No, man, it's going to be the same as far as what you've seen at Hawaii. Explosive, exciting, a lot of points. Get your popcorn ready, scoring points and, lighting up the scoreboard. I mean, that's really what Hawaii football is about. That's what the people want to see. We're going to give the people what they want to see from a explosiveness standpoint, and, lighting up that scoreboard and, getting guys in space and giving them an opportunity to make big plays.
Well, it's like Hawaii is the team that no one, I mean, okay, maybe if you're a fan of someone in the same conference, but if you're not, like, you can't not like Hawaii. Like that's like it's 11 o'clock on the East Coast, or maybe even midnight on the East Coast. You get home, you're drunk, you're whatever you are, you put on the football game, and Hawaii is scoring 45 points. How can you not like Hawaii? And now there you are, getting to coach this super explosive offense. That must be fun.
Yeah, I mean, the culture, the uniforms, the people, Aloha Stadium. I mean, it's, definitely everything that you thought about before you got out here. It's definitely that.
I wanted to end this with asking you, who are the offenses in college, in the NFL, that you look at and you say, let's say maybe next time I'm an OC, these are the type of things that I want to incorporate that I'm seeing right now on TV?
Well, I got to give love to my man Kingsbury, because he ran the formation, saw him run the formation. that I think what he's doing is special just because he's having fun with it out there. Obviously when you have a quarterback like Kyler Murray, you can do a lot of different things. And shout out to my boy Charles Clay, who's still playing, the fountain of youth that played with me a long time ago. I like what the Cardinals doing. Love what the Rams are doing. Anytime I'm a Steelers fan, so anytime Big Ben's out there again, that's fun to see. They're old school, running duo and power and doing their thing like they always do. The Saints, Sean Payton is the GOAT. They got every pass concept there is. So, the Saints are definitely fun to watch.
They do.
There's a lot of guys.
Everything.
Shanahan, I'm just a football nerd. I mean, people get confused because I played football and I was, decent at it, that, you don't become like, but I've been the guy who lined up my Army men and watched every game that you could. And, I'm a football geek. So for me, everybody's fun to watch because I try to learn something from everybody, honestly.
I think that's a great point because even, the offenses that the stats say are ranked, whatever, I'm sure they do something that's unique. Everyone's doing something that's a little unique. I think that's a great answer. So anyways, this was great talking to you, Marion. Love talking the GoGo offense, love talking a little bit of Hawaii. And whenever you guys play, whenever it is, I hope it goes well for you guys.
No doubt. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 into their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. So that's a $40 value for just $20. And you'll get that opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy football and prop games at one of the fastest growing fantasy sports sites in the USA in Monkey Knife Fight. Go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. MooseFit is a premium online workout program and remote coaching service that provides you with daily workouts based on your goals, the time you have available, and the equipment you have at your disposal. Gym still closed because of COVID and you don't have any equipment at your home or your apartment? MooseFit has a bodyweight program that will push you and challenge you. Heading on a beach vacation and looking to tighten things up a bit? MooseFit has a physique program. With 15 different pre-made programs, MooseFit has something for everyone. Additionally, MooseFit offers completely customized programs that are unique to each member. No two custom programs are the same. Purchase your MooseFit membership and a MooseFit coach will reach out to you with a questionnaire. Based on the information provided in the questionnaire, your MooseFit coach will either assign you a pre-made program to you or will create a custom program for you. All workouts are delivered to members through an easy-to-use mobile and desktop application that allows you and your coach to easily track your progress and make any adjustments to your program that may be necessary. Founded by a former Army Special Operatives captain and former Division I athlete turned professional CrossFit athlete, MooseFit is well equipped to help provide you with daily workouts that will challenge you and help you reach your health and fitness goals. For PFF listeners, use the code PFF50 and receive 50% off your first month. For more information, check them out on Instagram at MooseFit or their website www.moosefit.com. Joined now by the big homie, Austin Gayle from 2-for-1 Drafts. Unfortunately, Mike Renner couldn't be with us tonight, and that's it. We're done with him. I think I'm going to be the new guest host on 2-for-1 Drafts now. No, so Austin, you did get this question right last time, so I'm going to ask you again. Who were the guys coming out of college that you were pounding your chest for that not a lot of other people were, who have proved you right already, either the first 2 weeks of this season or even in his second year?
Yeah, I mean, I think prove me right. We're 2 weeks into the season is probably rough. It's a little early of a victory lap for me, but I think for a rookie, I've been really, really impressed with what Jalen Johnson's done with the Chicago Bears. He's in a scheme that protects his, inefficiencies a lot, playing a ton of quarters there, but like his breaks on the ball, him not giving up big plays, him looking the part already as a rookie corner, while the rest of the league's rookie corners, Noah Benogany, Trayvon Diggs, Jeff Gladney, Cameron Dancer, all these rookie corners getting snaps. Jeffrey Okuda, those guys are struggling. Jalen Johnson already looks the part. I believe right now he's top 5 in PFF grade so far this year. CJ Henderson, too, is playing really, really well. And I don't think I would necessarily bang my chest for him. I liked him coming out, but had concerns with kind of his mentality, his demeanor, his ability to get better. But so far this year, the dude's lights out, playing really well, playing a ton of man coverage concepts too, which is easier said than done. But when you have his athletic ability, his fluid movement skills, he's looked really good. For second-year guys I'm in love with right now, Dexter Lawrence looks like a different animal this year. Like, he's really, and I don't harp on run defense all the time, but this guy's just a bully down low. And I really do think he can two-gap really well and play run defense at an elite level to the point where he's going to be an impact player for the Giants this year. Quinnen Williams stepping up. He was the number 3 overall player in that draft class just a few years ago, and now that he's looking the part is really encouraging for the Jets as well. So a lot of cool names so far this year, a lot of cool storylines to follow.
All right, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Austin Gayle from 2-for-1 Drafts. Thanks, Austin.
No problem.
I'm joined, as always, by PFF Tony, Anthony Treash, talking. We're going to start with Louisville-Miami last week. What were your thoughts on that game?
I mean, I was kind of disappointed it wasn't, a little bit more competitive there. Louisville's defense was atrocious, I will say, but man, it was good seeing Derek King actually get some national attention, back to his 2018 season there. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the best. That was actually, from an EPA per play standpoint, the most efficient passing attack Miami's ever had in the PFF college era. And when you're watching Miami football, in recent years, they have just been so hard to watch on offense. So I mean, it was good to see actually, granted, some of their best plays came from mistakes made by Louisville, but at the end of the day, Derek King played just about as good as you possibly can. It wasn't at that elite level in our grading system, but he had very few negatively graded throws, no turnover-worthy plays, had a couple big-time throws in there. So, I mean, I was really, really impressed with Derek King in Miami.
The game ended, you said it wasn't that competitive. It's almost like the game ended when Louisville couldn't score in the red zone early, and then Miami just never let go of that lead. I mean, it ends up being about the same score. The difference was it was 14-3 at one point, and that was pretty much the difference for the whole game, that spread. What did you think of? So one of the things, with Louisville quarterback Mikael Cunningham, he grades super well in our system, except when he's pressured, it's just not there anymore. The accuracy just goes down the sink, or whatever the expression is, and he just can't play. Did we see anything that told us that there was a development there, or not even?
From me personally, I was expecting a little bit more from Cunningham, and really everybody on the offensive side of the ball from Louisville. I was expecting that, a couple weeks ago too, and we just haven't really seen that yet. And, when we were making the PFF College magazine, he was just one of the most interesting guys to watch, just because of what you said. I mean, he would deliver some great passes downfield from a clean pocket off of a play action shot. You get pressured and you'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's just kind of one of those maddening things. But I mean, I was expecting a little bit more, just because we didn't see any of those special plays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm also just getting a little more concerned with Tutu Atwell. Obviously, one of our highest graded receivers at this level. He can play. We know that. And not that this is not that this is 2-for-1 drafts with Seth and Tony, but it's like, I don't like. Can he play against? You're gonna have to line him up in the slot. We had this discussion about Justin Jefferson last year and how much plays he played in the slot in 2019 for LSU. Oh, well, can he play outside? Well, yeah, you just look at the tape from 2018 and he's outside the whole time. Tutu he's not a big guy, super fast, and obviously he's a playmaker because you can get the ball in his hands in a lot of different ways. But I'm concerned that he's not really the guy who can take over a game. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, again, I was expecting big things from Tutu Atwell, and all of his, when you're looking back at all of his best plays last year, they almost always, it was from a sweep, some type of, he got a cushion there, it just blows past the defender wide open for a wide open target deep. So I think, you make a great point there. When you're looking at his career long term, I think that's a concern. But I think, once Louisville starts facing a little bit of rougher defenses there than Miami, I think we're going to see kind of those Tutu Atwell-esque games. We saw it last year from him. just kind of scheme it up for him. You just got to get the ball in his hands, really, because he does some fun things there after the catch.
Yeah, and it felt like that really wasn't. I didn't look at the numbers, but it felt like they didn't do that type of stuff on Saturday night, which I was expecting. Those jet tap passes and stuff like that, reverses, stuff like that. You really didn't see it. All right, let's move on to this week, and we'll stick in the ACC, and we'll stick with Louisville, who are in Pittsburgh for the 2-0 Kenny Pickett-led Pittsburgh Panthers. What are you thinking about for that game?
And this Pitt defensive line, they don't have Jalen Twyman. He opted out. This is one of the best pass rush units. When you have almost mercy rule Austin P because of your defensive line, mostly because of your defensive line, that says something. You have, Patrick Jones on there, Rashad Weaver coming back last year after getting hurt. Also Keyshawn Camp in there. And their backups on that defensive line could be starters at most Power 5 schools. That's how deep they are there. You also have Paris Ford on the back end, who's been a playmaker for him this year and was last year. He has his flaws, sure, but what he does for him, he makes plays. There's no doubt about that. So I think I don't think it's going to get any easier for Louisville. I think Pitt's defense is a lot better than any defense they've faced so far. So I think, Pitt's favored right now, and I would probably lean that way just because of that defense solely. And plus Kenny Pickett, granted, facing bad teams, but he's looking pretty sharp. So, I wouldn't put much stock into that, but you can count on this defense to really, be a headache for him.
I think one of the interesting things is, so Miami was able to kind of, what I wrote an article about this today. They were able to suppress Louisville's big plays. And that's what Louisville wants to do. They want to hit you with big plays off the play action game, off their outside zone, wide zone stuff. And Miami sat there with two safeties and didn't allow any big plays. Now, the thing was, they actually allowed some success on the ground or even through the air on shorter gains. And Louisville was able to, I think it was about 47% success rate, which is really not bad. And it was actually a lot more than Miami's offense. Miami just was able to create the explosive plays. But now you go against a Pittsburgh team who, if Pittsburgh wants to sit back in too high, and that's Pat Narduzzi's thing for the past 10 years, well, you're going to be able to suppress the big plays, and you got that D-line, like you said. I don't know if they're going to have that same success rate. So now you have no big plays, and you're in third and longs the whole game. That's not a recipe for success for Louisville. But we'll see what we get from Pickett after two. Syracuse is not a good team. They're just not a good team, and obviously they have some talent in the secondary and on the defense, but they're really not a good team. So we'll see. Louisville's obviously doesn't have a great defense, but it's probably better than Syracuse. So we'll see. Moving on to Syracuse, they're at home. They're hosting Jeffrey Sims and the Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck. My boy Jeff Sims, talk to me about what do you think about this game?
Syracuse. They're just their defense is so boom or bust in the secondary. You'll see some incredible. God Lord, I'm sleep deprived. I don't know what's going on. All right. They're very boom or bust there in the secondary. But, when you have guys like Andre Sisco, we saw it in North Carolina. He had that amazing play on the back end, great range back there. But at the end of the day, he came down in the slot. Diami Brown just had his way with him. It was ugly a couple reps there, what he had. And then you have the same with Trill Williams. And if I'm saying it right, Fitu, I don't even want to try Melifonwu or something.
Yeah, I'll let you have that one.
Yeah, we'll roll with that. But anyway, he's a great player, lengthy. He can disrupt it. But again, they're all boom or bust. So it's going to be interesting because your boy Sims. I know you're in love with him. Here in a few years, you probably would want to draft him if you're running the team. But it's going to be interesting just because of some of the decisions we've seen him make, especially against that Florida State defense. We talked about it last week. He gave Asante Samuel. Me or you could have picked off that pass if we would have just been standing there like Asante. And so I think when you have kind of these boomer bust type of players, I think you're going to see some plays made by Andre Sisco, and that's really going to disrupt them.
Yeah, so the thing I see with Sims is a guy who I feel like he gets it for the most part. And he's gonna have these boneheaded plays like throwing the ball directly to Asante Samuel 2 weeks ago. He didn't have those plays against UCF. Obviously, big difference in the defense. Florida State is what, top 15, top 10 defense, top 5 defense. I don't even know in the whole country, and UCF is not that. But that's a game that you want to perform well in, and I wouldn't say that he performed like exceptionally well because his grade was, I don't have it in front of me, but it was somewhere in the 60s. But somewhere in the 60s is a lot better than somewhere in the 30s, which it was against Florida State. So at least there's improvement. He's still a freshman. I think he understands the reads. I think he understands that type of stuff. So I'm excited to see him going forward. Of course, I did say that he is maybe a future Heisman winner. I'm gonna eat my words on that one. But let's go. Let's go Georgia Tech. All right, last one in the ACC I want to talk about is Miami and Florida State. Big rivalry game. Derek King going against a real defense for the first time this season.
Yeah, and I saw ESPN really hyping up this game like it was going to be something special. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Miami is going to run over Florida State, and it's really much the same reasons we talked about earlier with how dynamic of a player Derek King is. He really didn't even do much on the ground against Louisville at all. We didn't see those types of plays, and that's really uncharacteristic from him. I think he's going to have those types of plays against Florida State. As good as that defense is, there's no doubt about that. That is definitely, I would say, probably a top 10 defense in college football. But I mean, also when you're looking at Florida State's offense, man, it's just, that offensive line, you can't do anything. I mean, it's very few quarterbacks in college football right now could survive behind that offensive line and actually, lead the teams to success.
Yeah, that's honestly the matchup that worries me the most for Florida State is the offensive line versus the Miami defensive line. They allow too many pressures, and 2 weeks ago against not a great Georgia Tech D-line, they allowed a ton of pressures, and now they're playing against Jalen Phillips is back. He looked pretty good against Louisville. Quincy Roche is dynamic, super fast off the ball, a great edge rusher there. So that's not a matchup they'll win. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They need to win it, that matchup, to keep them afloat. Because James Blackman we just don't look. He's probably not a great quarterback, but at the same time, we also he's playing behind one of the most porous offensive lines throughout his career, and he actually graded fine when he was not under pressure. I think it was somewhere in the low 80s. But the thing is, he's just not under pressure ever. They allow so many pressures all the time. It's I feel bad for him because we never get to see him play. He made some nice back shoulder throws, some nice plays down the field against Georgia Tech, but we just don't get to see it enough because of the offensive players around him. So, and I also agree, Derek King is going to make just enough explosive plays to I think win in the game, because I don't think Florida State can just score enough. All right, let's move on. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with Quincy Roche, he's been good this year, but we haven't seen Temple Quincy Roche. I think this is going to be kind of, that motivating game. And I think he's going to kick it into high gear. And I think he's going to put James Blackwood on the ground a few times.
Let's move to what I think is really the one kind of interesting game in the Big 12, Oklahoma State against West Virginia, because one of those two teams has another future Heisman Trophy winner in West Virginia quarterback Jared Dagey. I think this is going to be a fun matchup too, even though I'm not sure Oklahoma State looked that good on offense last week against Tulsa.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, the only bright spot on offense, Tevin Jenkins, the tackle, he made our team of the week. He played exceptional, but at the end of the day, what matters is the quarterback position. I know Spencer Sanders got hurt, but even then, I'm not confident if he was healthy, we're going to see a much better offense. It was good to see Tylan Wallace out there. He got back. He tore his ACL middle of last year. He looked right back to his top 10 wide receiver type of status, making a couple great contested snags. But yeah, this offense doesn't look, good enough really to really hang with West Virginia, in my opinion. And I think this is going to be, it's an interesting game. I'm not even sure what the spread is. Oh, what do we have here?
8.5.
That is a lot of points.
I know, that's a lot of points.
I know. And when we were talking about the other team's got a future Heisman winner, Jared Dagey, we're hyping this guy up. I think, Oklahoma State, They have a couple great players in the back end too, with Colby Arville-Peel and Trey Sterling, two really good safeties. Probably the best safety duo outside of the TCU one in Ardaeus Washington and Trayvon Moehrig. But yeah, I think, this is also going to be a really good test for Jerry Daggy to really show he actually is the real deal. Just because, this isn't a great defense, but it's not Eastern Kentucky type of defense.
Yeah, Eastern Kentucky doesn't really have a defense from what I've seen so far this year. So yeah, I was so just not impressed by Oklahoma State. Obviously, like we said, Spencer Sanders goes down early. I'm not really sure how I feel about him. He's a young kid, but he didn't play particularly well last year. Obviously, he's got some athletic ability, but in the passing game, it was really, really hit or miss. So you expect some development. But then even if he's not going to be there, and they played most of the game without him, there was no chance they were going to move the ball, even with the Canadian Cowboy, Chuba Hubbard, in the backfield. Let's move to the SEC. We finally get the SEC is back. We're going to save the best game for last year. Let's go Florida, Ole Miss, noon in Oxford.
Yeah, I was really, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking ahead what the slate were for the SEC games. And I saw Florida Ole Miss, I got really excited, but then Lane Kiffin's sitting here leading me on that John Reese Plumlee may not even start. And now I'm just really disappointed. He can't do squat as a passer. He cannot throw the ball downfield. But all you need to do is get the ball in his hands, scheme up some design rushes for him, get some zone reads in there, and watch this guy go to town, because his mobility is the best in college football. I'm pretty sure he ran a 4.4, or I know it pretty looks like he's capable of running a 4.4 when you watch him on film. And he's just really a big play waiting to happen with his legs. And obviously you'd rather have it as a passer. But me just being selfish, I wish he was in there just because I think that's going to be fun. But, I think I have a little conspiracy here that it is going to be John Reese Plumlee no matter what. But Lane Kiffin's doing Lane Kiffin things, leading Florida on there, just kind of playing with them toys, so they have to prepare for a few different things. But, I think it's going to be a good one too, and especially with that Florida team. Kyle Trask, we all know, how we feel about him. We're not really as high. When you're considering the circumstances that he didn't start until his freshman in high school, as a redshirt junior last year. That's a pretty considerable gap. When you're playing in the SEC, it could have been a lot worse. It really could have been. So, there's some optimism there that he can improve. He has, his strong arm there, but we just really never saw him utilize it. He had 9 big-time throws. Actually had the 4th worst differential between big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays. There was just a lot of dropped interceptions there, not showing up in the box score. But, that outside of him, you have that receiving unit with Kyle Pitts, Kadarius Toney. And then on the secondary, too, I'm looking forward to see Kyer Elam and hopefully Marco Wilson get back to that 2017 form we saw from him before he tore his ACL in 2018, kind of dipped down and play in 2019. But I think this is, most people will look at it, you're going to see the spread and think, oh, Florida's going to blow him out. But I think there's a lot of intriguing things about this game.
Yeah, and they're not going to blow him out if John Reese Plumlee is the quarterback, because I think he gives you that dynamism that you want. Now, Matt Corral is actually an all right passer. He's probably a better passer than Plumlee. But Plumlee, I'm biased because, the first game I watched of Plumlee was the LSU game last year where he ran for 500 yards. So it's oh, this is the best quarterback I've ever seen. So yeah, I think he gives them that explosive ability, and hopefully they can create some. I'm sure Lane Kiffin and Jeff Lebby can create some schemes for him to work in the run game. And yeah, like you said, I'm so excited to watch Kyle Trask. We've been talking so much poop about him that honestly, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he goes out there. He's very accurate. We know he's very accurate, but like you said, not pushing the ball down the field and just so many dropped interceptions. And honestly, for his sake, I hope that was a 1-year blip, like you said, coming back off the bench after 20 years off the bench. So yeah, you're gonna make mistakes like that. Hopefully, he can fix it up, and I hope it works out for the kid. Noon also is probably the best game of the SEC slate, week 1, and that's Kentucky going to Jordan-Hare Stadium to face Auburn.
Yeah, and I really like Auburn's team outside of the quarterback. If you put Just even an average quarterback,
Matt
on that
Corral,
team.
put Matt Corral in.
Exactly. You put him on that team. That's a very dangerous team. I mean, you see like the roster around Bo Nix is so good. It reminds me, I don't want to say it's Alabama type, but, Alabama's fielding out these, I mean, they're good college quarterbacks, but they're not, like Tua in some years. I think you could say the same about Mac Jones, just above average, nothing elite at that level. If he just had a Mac Jones at Auburn, this is a very good team. I like Seth Williams a lot. He can't separate at all, but it doesn't matter because he's just bodying guys in tight coverage downfield. But you have Bo Nix, who has some of the worst downfield accuracy in college football. It's just not a good pair there. And then you have Anthony Schwartz and Eli Stove. You can pump screens to all day long, but that can only get you so far against a pretty good Kentucky defense, in my opinion.
And a pretty good Kentucky offense as well in terms of the big dudes up front. I mean, this is probably the best O-line, definitely in the country. I'll just say whatever. It's the best O-line, top 5 O-line in the country. They're returning a bunch of starters. They were good last year. They returned a bunch of starters, but we don't know what we're going to get from the quarterback position. Terry Wilson's coming back after a season that was lost. And he was like, oh, he's okay as a passer. Like he's not. They had a great season, but I think a lot of that was on the running game for the past 2 years, even when Terry Wilson was there. So I think it could be a good game because you get a good O-line going against a good D-line in with Big Cat Bryant there at Auburn. So I think that's an interesting matchup. Auburn, like you were saying, Auburn definitely has the better probably, roster from 1 to 22 on the field. But I think it's still an interesting matchup because if you can get that running game going and you're really gashing them for 7, 8, 9 yards per carry, I think we can see an interesting game there. Georgia is going to Arkansas. Georgia's going to win, but like the quarterback, like it might not be JT Daniels. It looks like it's going to be DeJuan Mathis. We don't love JT Daniels here. And yeah, it was a true freshman season that we're kind of going off of in one game as a true sophomore, but even that is not that good. I guess I want to ask you is this expected? Did you expect to see the freshman starting for Georgia?
It's interesting just because, like I've seen conflicting reports. It seems like every day, one day it's Mathis, then it's Daniels. Daniels is healthy. Oh, wait, maybe he's not going to be medically cleared for the game. I mean, who knows? It's kind of like what I was saying about John Reese Plumlee and Lane Kiffin. I think they're just kind of waiting the last possible minute just to not tip their hand on the whole thing. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting too to see how some of the Georgia fans react too, because I know they praised JT Daniels like he was Joe Burrow. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they react to that news. But yeah, we're not very high on JT Daniels at all. I mean, I know it was a true freshman season, but it's really, really rare to see someone go from JT Daniels level to someone that was like Jake Fromm last year, or what Jamie Newman was last year at Wake, who was supposed to be Georgia's starter this year. I mean, he had some very pretty deep balls. There's no doubt about that. But just about every single part of the quarterback position, he struggled at. And that's very, very concerning, especially his accuracy. It just was not there. I mean, he finished 129th out of the 130 FBS quarterbacks that year and wins above average. So he didn't even generate positive. So he generated negative. He hindered his team more than he helped it at all at USC. And, when you're looking at, what, happened to Kedon Slovis too. I mean, they were very easily, like, yeah, he's going to be our guy for 2020 type of thing. So I think, Georgia is such an interesting team too. I mean, I really think they have one of the best rosters outside of the quarterback position. Remove the quarterback position, I think they have the best roster in all of college football. Even I would say it goes toe-to-toe with Ohio State and Clemson. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this game's going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how that quarterback situation shakes up.
Yeah, I think I spoke about this last week on the podcast, but JT Daniels looked rushed when he was playing. Like the feet weren't ready. Obviously, we said the accuracy wasn't there. So yes, it was a true freshman year, but it was a very, very bad true freshman year. And that's why, it could be a thing like you're saying with Lane Kiffin. He's trying to throw some smoke, and it actually is going to be JT Daniels. But, for Kirby Smart. But it wouldn't surprise either of us, I think, if it went to the freshman there. All right, we're at the point where you ask me about the LSU game. So
yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts about this one. I mean, you got your guy Mike Leach in there, and then the depleted LSU Tigers, absolutely gutted.
Yeah, so the thing with Leach that's interesting, and Alex Kirshner last week on the pod talked about how, one of the things with the air raid offense, and they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback in KJ Costello to, because they couldn't, with Garrett Schrader or whatever, like that wasn't going to work out in an air raid type of system. But one of the problems with the air raid is, like, we talked about this last week, it's a 3-day install. So you're trying to get it. Now, this might have changed. I might be having bad, like, old information, but this is what it used to be, at least. Like a 3-day install. You're putting as much as you can in those 3 days, and then you're just repping the same plays over and over again for the rest of camp. So it really is that, like, rep-based. Like, we got to get a lot of reps, a lot of timing down. They're not going to have that this year. They're also just, like, they're not like that. They couldn't throw the ball last year. They haven't been able to throw the ball for a while, probably since Dakota was there. So it's, there's some pieces there, obviously, with Kylan Hill and KJ Costello, but it might take a lot more time, even with a veteran transfer coming in. And on the LSU side, it's the knowns versus the unknowns. One of the problems, though, if LSU is going to be a national title contender, is, like, you look at Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and now Ohio State coming back in the mix. They have knowns coming back. And with 3 of those teams, it's at quarterback. Even if Mac Jones is not the Tua, he's still very, very good. So you have knowns coming back there. LSU, yeah, they recruit very well, but we don't know. We don't know. Like, we don't know who's going to step up. We don't know. Now, like, who's going to play any of the receiver spots? The only guy coming back is really Terrace Marshall, who was a 5-star player, but he's never played close to the quarterback before. He played Z where he was, like, lined up really far. He still had 13 touchdowns, but that's more of a volume stat. And so he was, like, he graded out like 70 whatever for us. Like, it was okay. And now you have Racey McMath, who graded out really well, but he only played, like, a couple snaps a game. So, like, we don't know. Tyler Shelton's not there anymore. Like, who's going to be in the middle of the D-line? Obviously, Neil Farrell opts back in, so that's good. But I think, again, the main thing is there's too much unknowns to really make any interesting prediction, I think, about LSU. But the nice thing is we get to watch for at least one more year the best player in college football, Derek Stingley. So that's nice.
Yeah, 2 more years. We get 2 more years of Derek Stingley.
Well, one year in college football, then 1 year paid $30 million to go play in the XFL before he goes to the NFL. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I could see this going either way. If you told me Mississippi State somehow managed to pull out the upset, I would probably believe you. But if you said LSU wins by 40, I'd probably believe that too. I mean, just because, like you said, so many unknowns there. I am excited to watch Derek Stingley and Cordell Flott. I think, he's a very interesting one. He's very thin, but man, is he just a sticky corner. And last year, he had, I believe it was 23 targets or something like that, allowed 7 catches and forced almost nearly as many incompletions than catches allowed. So I'm really looking forward to watching those guys. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. And when you have Mike Leach and he's going to pass on probably 83% of his plays, how, Flott and Stingley handle that. And then, of course, KJ Costello, how he really bounces back from this injury-riddled 2019 campaign. It's really going to be an interesting game.
All right. Thank you very much, Anthony. I'll see you. You guys can find me and Anthony on our recap pod coming out. Should be out Monday morning, recapping the games weekends. Thanks, Tony.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hope you enjoyed the pod, guys. I had a great time talking ball with Brennan. It just seems like a good dude, and we wish him all the best here at the PFF College Football Pod. Some notes: you will be getting another pod on Monday mornings with me and Anthony recapping the weekend's games. Obviously, this week we have the SEC coming into play, so we're very excited for that. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.